Um, the ones with the gentle sunset highlighting the silhouettes of trees and deer were attached to the ceiling over his bed, so he could stare at them until he went to sleep. Even though he was mildly allergic to pollen, he still loved the smell of it and the fresh outside air. He continued down the road, passing by many gas stations that were made decades ago. They had since been converted to on-the-go electronic charging stations, but they still have the Go snacks as well for anybody who didn't pack that much for just needs a quick munch. He noticed something written on a tree in charcoal, but continued past it like it was nothing. He could only read the first few words before his car pressed forward. You never seek. He could tell the next letter was an N, but could not read the full word. John pressed the John passed the stations. Holy crap, I think I have dyslexia, guys. Looking at them for as long as he could. He liked the feeling of a building surrounded by open space, the grass and trees specifically. It had some kind of early 2000s feel, and he liked it. The road was long, but it wasn't as long as some of the other roads that. Oh my god, what is happening? As some of the other roads that had existed. Holy crap, I gotta get closer to the screen. The road was long, but it wasn't as long as some of the other roads that had existed in West Virginia. He saw his exit and turned onto Highway 64, then continued eating his oh my god, his root beer crisps. They tasted like they had been dipped in normal root beer, but they were slightly salty. It was the perfect amount of salt to make them taste good, and the beet and potato flavor that was in the potato chips enhanced the taste a ton. He had a small cut on his hand, and when the small spots of residual salt rubbed against it, it would sting a little bit, but the crisps tasted too good to pass down the opportunity. John had just come past the seventh exit until he had reached the road. There had only been two well-known survivors, and since then they had died. They had died just before John had been born, so he never got to meet them. That says born, not bored. Autocorrect. Hopefully it didn't correct to bored. So he never got to meet them. John always felt some sort of a strange connection with them, even though he didn't know what it was. They had brought something along with them from Blood Lake. John had guessed that the two of them had held it in their house, but whatever it was never revealed. And about the same time of their death, a little after, sightings of strange, oversized animals walking on their hind legs came in as police reports, but none were ever found. The stories Kent and Daryl had told made them seem insane, and numerous tests had been done to them to see what happened to their minds to get them to believe such bullshit, but the only thing that was found was a small natural cancerous tumor that would kill them within the next 4 years. John had done numerous hours of research on them and what they said their story was, but the only thing that was created was some weird Wikipedia article about some strange kind of metal. John had looked everywhere to no avail. He had approached the exit that was displayed on his phone, looking left to see Howard Creek. The black electrical screen displayed lots of small LED bulbs that lit up and read the name of the exit. He turned into the road, then turned left again, crossing over Howard Creek. The GPS had said to turn right, so he looked around the corner for anybody. He had seen that it was actually quite a populated site. He continued along the road and came upon a supercluster base peering over the tree's horizon. They were going to build another one of those gosh darn things. Those things were so tall that you could probably see them from the inside of area of Blood Lake. He continued until the GPS led him to where he wanted to be, turning about one left and one right. He was now driving along Village Run Road. His heart was racing, looking left and right to spot any hidden government agents. He remembered what Garrett had told him and continued down the road nonchalantly. He turned off his GPS so the government couldn't spy on where it was leading him. He saw the roadway ahead, then he stopped. It was a nice sunny day, and John was about to enter the government-protected zone. He would get shot on sight, so he continued past the road, looking down it to try and spot any government agencies. Then he shifted his focus back to the road and continued along as if nothing had happened. It was good that he didn't slow down, or else the government would have known he was up to something. He continued into the new White Sulphur Springs supercluster, and he'd forgotten his Dyson hover plates at his house. But luckily, these places were filled with ladders and elevators and everything else that could get you to where you needed to be. John had to stay the night, so he drove around the base of the supercluster and searched for one that he could stay in. The hotels were free because superclusters gave way to so much space it was unimaginable. Exploring just one supercluster and superstructure was almost impossible due to how complicated the hallways were. The people that worked in them just had to get used to the hallways they needed to navigate between the different stores and or their jobs and homes. One supercluster building had at least 300 small stores and could fit 100 early 21st century Walmart-sized buildings stacked atop each other. Oh, let me spit out that gum. It's gross. John stared at the neon signs that were close to the ground that labeled what the building was used for. He finally found one that had a free hotel, and he parked his car, stepped out, looked up at all of the hover cars that were bound to ruin the atmosphere, shrugged, grabbed the stuff that he would take into the hotel, locked his car, and then entered the building. Like anyone was stealing his car. Oh my gosh, okay. In the society they were in, anything that didn't have the newest tech was considered useless. He walked through the first door, which happened to be under a parkway of hover cars. It was a jewelry shop, but it was fine because they usually had a way up the elevators. They were on the bottom floors and kind of zigzagged up to the maniacally built superstructures. The spin door spun enough to let him through, giving off a small squeal sound as the insulators rubbed on the young flooring. He had entered some sort of lobby. There were white walls with virtual paintings hanging from them, switching to a new art piece every 10 seconds. He stood there looking around the room, a crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling and jingling every once in a while, making some sort of ambient tune with the different sizes of crystals giving off different sounds. "Good afternoon, sir," the jewelry shop cashier said. "Good afternoon to you, too, sir," John said, looking up. That is a comma. If you'll excuse me, I'm just going to use the elevator. Right this way," he said, pointing to a hallway that was to the left of his desk. John put his pointer and middle fingers to his head, then jerked them forward to a stop as some sort of playful salute, then continued down the hallway. He walked by another 2012 vending machine, looked at how horribly it was designed, then continued to the elevator. There was usually a row of them because even though they zigzagged, the increments were quite large and took a long time to travel up. John stepped in front of the elevator door, pressed the up button, and the door opened. It was a nice, cozy little elevator. John wheeled in his stuff, closed the doors, and waited in the elevator as it started up and gently pressed him to the floor. The elevator smelled just like it had been washed down with an overwhelming lavender scent that had died down a bit, but was still overpowering. It was strong enough to the point of getting John's nasal cavity to slightly sting, but it was still one of his favorite smells. The quiet music played in the elevator. It was actually quite catchy for elevator music. The elevator continued to pick up speed as John was pressed to the floor with an extra half of G of force. John was used to it as he had been in tube rockets and fast-stopping subways. He danced to the music as he stood in the elevator and listened for 2.5 elevator songs, all of which got stuck in his head at the same time, merging together into a neat tune. The elevator door opened, making a stopping sound, and almost throwing John's senses off when the force became less than normal. The door had opened into a hotel, and it had a slightly nicer lobby, with fake plants made of real sticks in pots. They had felt leaves attached to the sticks, making them look slightly more alive, but more like a very well-made kindergarten crafts project that was neatly displayed in the main lobby. The brick walls had indents